All right, I think we're live now, so I'll go ahead and start with the introduction. Welcome, everyone. Hi, welcome to the panel we have here on the live industry. My name is Alyssa, and I'm so excited to moderate with these guys here on live strategies then and now. With me, we have Joey Papoutsis, Chad Kenney, and Kellon Johnston-Roper. Thanks, guys, for coming in today. So we're basically just going to discuss some of the strategies within the live sector right now. But before we jump into questions, if you guys each want to introduce yourself, mention where you're based right now, some of the experience that you've had in the past, and then what you're currently working on. Joey, you want to start off?
Sure. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Joey Papoutsis. I'm a co-founder of Keel Artist Management based here in LA. It is an early morning for us. Los Angeles residents, but happy to be with you guys. Currently, my company looks after Louis the Child, 2 Feet, Cali, Sebastian Paul, a few other touring artists. We also manage a few producer-songwriters. We independently release music all the time. I'm also a producer on an online music festival called Digital Mirage. So that's me.
Chad, you want to go next?
Hi, Chad Kenney, Los Angeles based as well. I'm the creative director in an events company called Brownies and Lemonade here in LA. I've been working in the electronic music space in the LA scene for 13 years. And formerly, I also worked on A&R for Fool's Gold Records and Warner Brothers Records, and now Warner Records. And yeah, do A&R management. And I also work with Joey on Digital Mirage and a handful of online streaming events since the COVID-19 crisis. So that's what I'm doing now.
Right on. And I'm Kellon Johnston-Roper, based in Brooklyn. I'm on the programming team at Avant Gardner, massive live event complex out in industrial Bushwick, home of the Brooklyn Mirage, which is kind of our marquee venue. Beautiful open air, 5,000 cap place. I know the Louis the Child guys were supposed to play a 2-night run there in August. We were super stoked on that. And I think actually Brownies and Lemonade did a nice after party after Electric 2 last year. So
probably my favorite venue in North America. Sorry.
No, of course. I appreciate that. It's amazing. If you're ever in Brooklyn and things, get reopened, please, everyone should certainly drop by. It's a really special place. I also work on the artist management side, help at Upstream Music Group, help out on the Robotaki project, lead Manu Dia and Compson, and Echo as well. So wearing a couple of hats there.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I just wanted to mention before we hop into the questions, I know Henny mentioned it in the chat box. If you guys have any questions for the viewers right now, feel free throughout this entire session to either mention it in the chat box, or we have the questions tab over to the right-hand side where you can just type in your question. The last 10 minutes of the session, we're going to do a little Q&A. And then if you'd like to answer the question personally, I'll ask. We can put you on stage so you can talk with the guys and ask your question. So, all right. So to kick things off, I just have a very general question. Of course, the current state of the industry right now has dramatically changed since come January, February, due to the pandemic. And right now, most events have transpired to be online through streaming, stream-based. And it took the industry certainly by surprise, I think. And it changed the way that we had to do things. So my question for you all is, what were you doing before? And what projects were you looking forward to that might have changed how, you were originally planning to do these throughout the course of the year? How did these projects really reshape? Does anyone want to take that?
I can. I'm happy to start off. I mean, at Avant Gardner, we had probably, I want to say, close to 120 shows on the calendar between April and October. Obviously, none of those are taking place. So we've been, really busy over the last few months, working to reschedule all of those shows, as many as we can. And fortunately, we have been able to reschedule the vast majority of them in the 2021 timeframe. So we're now kind of just looking ahead to, next year. Obviously was a huge disappointment, and definitely came, as a surprise to every single one of us. So it's been a challenge to kind of work through that many shows. Obviously we were really excited about every single one of them that we had on the calendar. So it was just a huge blow. And obviously, our fans were really disappointed as well. So we've had to kind of, walk the line and deal with that fallout as well, which has certainly been a challenge. On the other side of things, more on the management side, we had a Robotaki headline run planned from April to May that, I'm sure, Joe, you probably experienced this as well. We had to totally shut down the entire tour. And, it's obviously tough when your hard costs are already sunk in there and, you're fully routed and you've booked flights and hotels and all that stuff. I mean, that was pretty difficult to, bite the bullet there. But, what are you going to do? So we've, again, with that one, looked towards 2021 and are now looking at, a cool co-headline package, which is one of the kind of, I guess, good things that might come of this. Some cool packaging from various artists and tours to, try to help recoup and make the shows make sense when we do get out on the other side. But in both cases, we've kind of just both, at Avant Gardner and on the management side, we've moved towards live streaming just to kind of, facilitate some sort of, content in the meantime. But, obviously there's no real replacement for a live performance at this time. So,
yeah. Yeah. With Louis the Child, we just released their Here For Now album. That album was originally, we were planning on releasing it mid-April, right before Coachella. So the guys were they had a huge slot at Coachella this year, big bus tour that routed kind of like out of Coachella, big North American bus tour. And then when all the shows started shutting down, we decided instead of putting all this music out on a really compressed timeline, let's, space out a few singles. It completely changed our rollout and release strategy. And obviously when like Louis Child's tour, there's probably, they would play for like 100,000 people over the course of the tour. So not getting those impressions is obviously tough. We did a really cool online listening event in partnership with Proximity. Cool thing with that was like the attendance. We had a few thousand people tuned in. If we had a in-person listening event, the attendance probably would have been a few hundred people, right? So much bigger impact there. But it's certainly, COVID's definitely changed a lot of the ways we're looking at marketing recorded music. I mean, it's like, do we need to spend money to do outdoor advertising or try to get a Times Square billboard? How much impact does that stuff have? It's kind of pouring more money into content. It's much tougher to shoot music videos. That's why you're seeing so many animated music videos right now. The next Louis Child music video is animated. So yeah, you just got to adapt and keep going. I think the artists that are continuing to put out content and build their brands right now are the ones that are going to come out ahead on the other side of this thing. Yeah,
no, I totally agree. And with Brownies and Lemonade, pretty much all of our revenue comes from live. So, just as Joe and Kellon experienced, you have to really kind of account for all of that lost revenue and the whole calendar kind of being completely wiped. So, we're very fortunate at Brownies and Lemonade that we have the ability to be a little bit more nimble. We don't have a ton of employees on salary or anything. So we really adapted to trying to get the stuff going on the live stream side of things as quickly as possible. I think we did a pretty good job of that. And, one of the things that's been great is being an LA-based events company, which I think would be pretty niche for a lot of people and would be kind of locked behind some sort of ticket or proximity issue if you were in another state or whatever, is that we've been able to do these shows online for free, broadcast to the whole world. Which has opened us up to a whole new kind of audience. And we've pretty much doubled our social media following on a few platforms during this time. So, that is one of the things that has been a positive. But, obviously, some of the opportunities that we lost this year on the festival side of things is bigger than most people will ever get in their careers, and that's just something that may not come back. Last weekend, we were supposed to do this second annual Brownies and Lemonade block party at the Shrine. We also would have been working at Anime Expo, which was canceled. And then, in a few weeks, we would have been going to Japan for the Olympics and doing a show out there. So these were all really big things I was looking forward to, but, you have to adapt and just be, very thankful that we still have the opportunity to work or try to do something in this time. And I think that's a healthy mindset to have.
Definitely. I mean, we're talking so much about the digital space now, how it's become like the most common way to experience a festival or really any type of live performance. And we were talking earlier about a couple, but do you see any other new ways to really foster this festival experience, or maybe online direct, like artist to fan experience, any opportunities within this space that may have not been within a traditional venue as before?
I mean, I always revert back to streaming, and one that comes to mind was actually one of the Digital Mirage sets where Chet Porter did the underwater set. I don't know, I'm sure you guys saw that, but that was pretty cool. And I do think that just for an example, you're obviously never going to see an underwater set, or at least as far as I can think, you're never going to see an underwater set at a proper venue. So I think that, things like that, getting really, really creative with the streams is certainly, another way to kind of put a spin on that, rather than, just the more standard setup, which also, can be really cool on a stream. But, doing things like that, I've seen some amazing setups. So.
Yeah, 100%. There's a transformative kind of quality to some of these sets that we were able to do. Joey and I were able to get for Digital Mirage 1 and 2. And then also like, you're seeing some really cool stuff in which, the artist fan interaction has changed a lot, and it's very multi-layered in what you're able to do in building a community. And that's the thing that really, I think people will hopefully start to realize, is that this is really for community building. That when we were able to kind of transition back into doing live shows, however slowly that may be, you're going to have a much stronger fan base, hopefully, or a much better relationship with your community, a lot more aware of where these people are and what they want. And I really think that that's, the best thing that can come out of this, and not trying to think that we're going to replace the impact of a live show by, any gimmicks, or, you're going to run out of ideas or run out of the ability to produce these things consistently in quarantine. So you want to just be able to kind of have that really nice, steady stream of engagement and sort of an interaction with your fans.
Yep. And with 2 Feet's Digital Mirage set, he was another artist that, he released an album in the spring, right before COVID, had a big bus tour planned. And so we're like, shit, we don't have all these impressions we're about to make. Let's try to deliver the best production value we can on Digital Mirage. And we recorded his set at Mission Studios in Brooklyn, brought in some lighting. The audio was professionally mixed. The production value, all the camera angles, it's a pretty cool, really interactive set. You can see each band member playing their instruments up close and personal. It feels really interactive. And, the silver lining is when his Digital Mirage set had great viewership, a lot of simultaneous viewers. But then we uploaded the set to his YouTube page after. He has a huge YouTube following, almost 1 million subscribers. And now that show, I think it's like 150K plays on his Digital Mirage set on the video on demand on YouTube. And now we have analytics, and we can see exactly like where everyone in the world's watching from, how old they are, et cetera. So that's cool. It's like his tour, there was less than 150,000 tickets that would have been sold to the tour, right? So it's like you can still get the same amount of impressions, even though you're not necessarily making the same amount of money. And so that's great. And we're still putting people onto the 2 Feet brand and kind of showcasing his artistry and his talent in the live space.
Yeah.
Great. Well, you guys have had a lot of experience hosting live events online. And I was wondering if you had faced any technical challenges with those experiences. We talked about opportunities, but is there ever been a moment when maybe things haven't gone right?
Oh yeah.
We also talk about Twitch and streaming and things like that. So can you, Chad, go a little bit more into your experience with that as well?
Sorry, just the question you're saying, have we had challenges like with the live streaming stuff? Yeah, probably too many to list here in this time frame. But yeah, I mean, when we first made the jump to doing like Digital Mirage, I myself personally, I've been streaming on Twitch for about a year now, and doing various video game and music things on there. But just for me and like a handful of viewers, I've always had an interest in that intersection, and I think that it's still a very promising area, the gaming music one. But when it came to doing a music festival online with Digital Mirage, I mean, not only had very few 3-day festivals been ever achieved in that capacity, but we had never done anything like that. Proximity had never done anything like that. The people that are back end producers are not really familiar with doing it purely on the digital side. Usually it would be having a truck on site at some sort of music festival that they're simulcasting through. There's a lot more hardware involved. It was a lot more hands-on, and it's a lot easier when you're in person and stuff doing these things. So doing it all remotely with all the artists only having whatever they had at their disposal at that particular point in time, a few weeks into lockdown, I mean, it was as DIY punk rock as possible. The only difference is that there were a couple 100,000 people watching. So, some of these mistakes that were happening, these technical issues seemed so, dire, in the moment, because we had never been up in front of that many people when something had gone wrong. At a normal show, maybe it's like 1,000 people. We have a lot more sort of like protocol in order to address some of these things. But, there's something where an hour-long set would go up without the audio being sort of, it wasn't, there was no quality control beforehand. So these are things we had to grow with, and going into Digital Mirage too, Joey, myself, and our partners at Digital Mirage, we sat down and had a long list of things that could possibly go wrong that we needed to address. And I think that we did a really good job on the things within our control. So you're seeing a lot of people within the space get better with these kinds of things because we're just learning a whole new criteria and set of tools. But yeah, I mean, on Twitch and all these things, I think people are getting more savvy. And I think that the audience will be forgiving, with the growing pains, as long as like you're very, communicative in that way. And you realize like, this is what we're all trying to do together to provide this experience, and I think people are, pretty honest about that.
Yeah, that's great. I just wanted to ask one last question before we jump into the questions from the audience. Friendly reminder, you guys can chat or post the questions in the chat box, and then we'll get to them in a few minutes or so. But the last question that I have is, looking ahead and looking at the future and thinking about people who want to enter this industry maybe for the first time, specifically in live, what advice do you have to them at this point in time? What do you think they should be working on? What do you suggest are good avenues to really put yourself out there in a situation like this?
Yeah, I mean, as we kind of briefly touched on this earlier prior to this, but I think that we came to a consensus that obviously the live space is facing a lot of challenges right now. It's a tough space to get into. So my advice would be looking at other facets of the industry where you might be able to gain some experience, working out labels, working on the management side, honing digital marketing skills, etc., in order to, make yourself as well-rounded as possible and, have an understanding in as many different facets of the industry as you can, because, I didn't originally come from a live background. And I think that, having a background, having experience in some of those other sectors really allowed me to have a more well-rounded perspective on how the live space works. So, while things are at a bit of a standstill, with touring and festivals and shows, this is an opportunity to kind of, get yourself a little bit more well-rounded in some of those other areas that will ultimately pay dividends in the live space.
Yeah, just building off that, I think it's a great time, if you're coming out of college to be an entrepreneur. And when I started managing Lewis Bell when I was a second semester senior at Syracuse. And I think that, it's really tough when you have these big companies like Live Nation AEG furloughing half their staff. There's a lot of people with several years of experience in the live side that are out of work looking for work. So look to build a brand online, whether that's an artist brand, a record label brand, an online events brand. And I think if you can do that, as soon as things turn back on, you'll be really well positioned to do whatever you want.
Totally agree with what was said there. And yeah, just get creative, have fun. This is one of the few times in history where you'll be able to be, people will be a little bit more patient, or you'll be given a little bit more slack in that regard to kind of, just take some risks and do whatever creatively and see how it works, you know, and the playing field has been extremely level because of this. And so I wouldn't look at I wouldn't see a lot of competition out there. I would see a lot more opportunity. You know, there's a lot more people who are able to work with you, who were maybe now not currently employed, who want to get started on stuff. So there's a lot of really great stuff out there that can be achieved, I think.
Yeah, cool. I think this is a great opportunity then for us to jump into the questions from the audience. I have one from Amara, which is very similar to what we were just talking about, thinking about strategies. But let me ask her quickly. Amara, would you like to answer this question? If not, I can read it off. If her wants to respond to that. Let's see here. I'll just mention it. So she says, what are the best strategies you have used in the past to engage audiences during quarantine? It says that she'd be happy to. So let's give her the stage then to ask the question.
Cool.
Yeah. Amara, let's see if we can put you on here. I think you just have to click accept and then it should.
This is cool.
I've never done anything like this before.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Very nice. Hey.
Hi. Well, my question was just about, now that we're in quarantine, what the best ways are that you think to connect with audiences online? There's so many programs right now and so many social media sites.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was mentioning Twitch. I think Twitch is great. Obviously, there's a subscriber function. So if you're able to get affiliate status, which is pretty easy to check off if you have just even like a very modest following from the outset. I think accepting subscribers on there is really great. You get a little bit more background on who the people that really care about you in that regard are. And I definitely think that, like, you know, anything that you can do in that small kind of intimate grassroots community, like really helps, really helps. Like for me personally, like I DJ and stream on Twitch. I have a group of like 25 people that are just like super locked in, like every Thursday. And I was actually able to pay my rent off of Twitch subscriptions alone. That was really helpful. For someone like me is like extremely modest following. It is just really cool. And I think that's like my primary means that I would say out of, I'm sure Joe and Kellon have also other suggestions, but yeah, Twitch for me is a big one.
I was just going to say, I think the big three for me are Twitch, YouTube, and TikTok, and figuring out, content strategies to just coincide with those three platforms. I think that, what Chad was saying, I've seen, from a number of artists, including Robotalk, we've set up, consistent streaming schedules for him, and just to do, various things from production tutorials to, playing video games to kind of more like interactive producing and songwriting, where he'll say, hey, what instrument or which snare should I add here, or which synth should I use here, and just kind of giving fans that chance to interact at a little bit of a deeper level and like a smaller community, I think is a pretty unique thing. Being able to just like get into the chat and actually chat with who you're watching on stream is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in on kind of the type of content, because I do think there's a bit of stream fatigue. Like people are a little burned out.
Yeah, for sure.
All the time. So like with Louis the Child, they did this like story time series, and the engagement was all right. It wasn't crazy, but when they did a beat battle with Wheaton on Instagram Live, like
that was cool.
Engagement on what they did on story time, and it was just more interactive and had a much bigger audience. My business partner manages Dr. Fresh. He does a weekly like streaming series called House Call, and that gets a decent kind of regular audience. But then he did a 1 gram dab challenge with Subtronics, and that event, like 5,000 simultaneous viewers watching these guys do this
amazing
goofy challenge. So it's kind of like, what I'm getting at is like the type of content, if you can think outside the box and kind of do stuff that people wouldn't normally see at a music festival or whatever. Sometimes, the more ridiculous and crazy and trash talking, the internet loves controversy, right? So
it's true. I will say
a little bit, you can get big audiences.
Yeah, no, that's and also I will say that you do want to be a little bit more deliberate and clear about what it is that you're doing, especially if you're an established artist. Because while it is good to have that kind of face-to-face, very intimate relationship with your fans, you also don't want to completely kill the mystery. So, if you're just available for 3 hours just playing video games and kind of like, you just want to be very deliberate and clear about what it is you're going to do. If you're going, it can't be as nonchalant. Not every artist can be that casual with their brand. So I think that at first it was kind of like that, and there was a bit of a charm to it. But I think a lot of people have kind of pulled back from doing it because they realize, like, well, I don't know if it's good for me to just sit there with 40 people shooting the shit. Like, I don't know if that's really necessarily the right thing for every brand. For some people it's great. Like, to have 40 people in there at any given time is a big win. I think it just goes case by case.
It's a great point.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for hopping in. So we have another question from Katie, Caitlin Williams. She said, one of you had mentioned that you double your social media from everything that's happened, but she's wondering, what practices do you feel that you'll carry over once things kind of ease off, get back to normal? Are there certain things that you're hoping to continue? And how do you, I'm going to add to this, how do you expect audiences to react to that as well?
Yeah, well, I'll quickly say that, like, I think that we want to continue doing the live stream stuff. So, like, even when shows resume, and let's just say we were to go 100% back to normal, I think live streaming is going to be a component of what Brownies and Lemonade does, so we can access those people who are unable to come to the shows. So that's a very big part of it. I think that, making sure that you continue to use these tools as a means of growth beyond, especially for us, regional promoters and event producers. I mean, it's opened up a whole new gateway in that regard. So we want to continue to make sure it's just not a fad that we're investing in for this period of time.
Yeah, I was just going to second that. I mean, maintaining live streams for various things, whether it be larger scale events and getting a subscription in place for, something like that, or just maintaining, a weekly stream that we do with some of our artists. But, to Chad's previous point, it is important to make sure that content becomes a little bit more limited or a little bit more deliberate, just so that we're not seeing this crazy oversaturation, which I do think everyone in the space saw at first when people were streaming every single day, and there were festivals every single weekend online. So just making sure that it's deliberate and a little bit more concise as we move forward, yet still maintaining these platforms.
Cool.
Do you guys have any tips for how to put on a live stream over social media? Maybe some like key points that you always like to include, or you need to make sure to include. Just curious with your experience with that.
Sure, I'll kick that one off. So I think it's really important when you're putting on a live show over social media. Like, I think one of the reasons Digital Mirage was so successful is because Proximity was, a founder and partner on the event. Proximity has 8 million YouTube subscribers. I think it's really helpful to, just make sure that you have a media platform with some kind of base. If you're live stream off a channel, even if it doesn't have 8 million subscribers, like if it has 100,000 subscribers, if it has 100,000 followers and you're broadcasting that through Instagram, whatever it is think about, that and make sure you have a great media partner to broadcast from.
Yeah. And I will say, in addition to Digital Mirage, we were able to come on board with Porter Robinson and Golden Voice and produce the Secret Sky Festival online. And that was a digital version of Porter Robinson's Second Sky, brand, which is relatively new. Actually, it's only, iteration was last year in the Bay Area. But what they were able to do at that event was really clearly translate the aesthetic and have a very palpable understanding of what it is that brand does well, and that idea. And that most of it just comes from the booking of the artists and how diverse and sort of cutting edge those artists are. And so each of the artists that submitted a set for that festival did something that was unique or sort of artistically striking. And so that particular stream, I would say, was still the coolest thing I think I've been a part of And I think it translated extremely well because of the understanding of the strengths of their given brand, and just really making sure they did everything to translate that the right way in the digital space, instead of just kind of throwing something up there and slapping Porter Robinson's name on it. So I think having that kind of, it lives in all these different areas, digital and in real life is really important. And I hope a lot of other people kind of take note of that, on how to have that consistency between the two.
Cool. I was going to say, like, talking about artist brand, do you think that companies for brand partnerships are changing their mindset when it comes to partnering for live events as well? Like, how do you think their mentality has changed and where their priorities are in this?
Either you guys want to take that?
So how have companies changed their priorities in the live stream world? Is that the question?
Well, you see, like, when brands are sponsoring festivals and things like that, if that's still continuing, if those relationships have continued, or an artist relationship with a brand of any kind, if that has been put forth because of everything that's happening.
Yeah,
or,
I mean, I'll say like that we had a partnership with, for instance, like Kappa Sports Clothing, and we did a show with them in San Francisco back in November, and really like the partnership was purely on live events. I mean, we did, I think, three events with them at the end of last year, beginning of this year. So really the parameters of that was within live space, but we were able to get them on Digital Mirage too. Their advertising was very quick but very clear, and I think that they were really pleased with what they were able to kind of get placement wise and engagement wise on that. And I think so a lot of brands are becoming a little bit more savvy to not only advertising on these live streams and kind of being integrated in that way, but also like being on the interactive side of it as well. And that's something that you hope that the person that is like a said representative at that company is going to kind of have the understanding and foresight that this is something that's important for the brand, and get the higher ups to kind of commit, But yeah, there's a lot of people that don't see this as a viable thing and don't really want to pull the trigger right now.
Yeah. And I think, Chad and I have heard firsthand from a lot of brands that say, hey, we usually sponsor music festivals and we're partners on live events, and now we have to put that budget somewhere else. So, let's get in the mix on Digital Mirage or whatever online event it is. So I think there are, a lot of brands excited and willing to jump in on these things if you have a cool platform.
Totally.
All right, guys, I think it's time now where we have to wrap it up, but I wanted to thank you three all for coming and just chatting for a bit. I know it's quite early for where some of you are, so I really appreciate it. And I also wanted to send a big thank you to all of INOCON. Have been working tirelessly, and they've pulled off a great conference these past 3 days. So thanks so much, guys, for coming. I really appreciate it.
And thank you for having us all.
Yeah, thank you for having us. And, if anyone has any follow-up questions, feel free to email me. My email's on Lewis Child's social media.
Yeah, likewise.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right,
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Have a good one.